I sold the studio and I transitioned everything online in 2016. I had no idea what I was doing. I had a Hotmail account and that's it.
Hey, it's Renee. Welcome to the Into the Wild Show, a podcast designed to encourage women to take their back of the napkin idea, launch it, and grow a wildly successful business. I founded We Wild Women, an entrepreneur training company, to help women like you, moms and go-getters, start the business of their dreams the right way. Not too long ago, I launched my $1 million agency when I was 8 months pregnant with my first son and welcomed my second son only 11 months later. So I know how to grow businesses and babies. Join me as I teach you the guiding principles and how to start and grow your business while overcoming the voice in your head screaming, "It's not possible." These raw and funny episodes will make you feel like you're right here with me, sipping on some Pinot and leaving more confident saying, "Yes, I can." Every episode leaves you with some action items and a real kick in the ass to get started. Here on Into the Wild, you'll hear from other trailblazing entrepreneurs and experts because I know that the best advice is from someone who's successfully done it before. So put your headphones on, grab a cup of coffee, and tune in because Into the Wild is about to begin.
Subscribe to my mom's podcast.
Hey, you wild women! My next guest is a medical exercise specialist and a functional diagnostic nutritionist specializing in women's health and hormones. She is the best-selling author of 3 books, The Simplicity Project, The Simplicity Kitchen, and The Simplicity Body. She is the fiercely driven founder of the Hormone Project, Synced, and the Audacious Woman, potentially powerful programs dedicated to empowering and teaching women what they should have known about their bodies all along, the incredible healing abilities, wisdom, and power they hold, and how to bring them to life. She sits on the advisory board for Strong Fitness magazine and serves you up weekly doses of education, wisdom, and inspiration on the Simplicity Sessions podcast, which has been in Apple's top 200 in health since its debut in September 2018. She's an inspired wife and mom of 2. She understands that true well-being as a woman is a journey to be enjoyed, not a struggle to be forced. Man, she's great. Anyways, please welcome the incredible Jenn Pike.
Hi, how are you? Thanks for having me.
Oh, well, thanks for joining us. This is exciting. There's kind of a theme because 2 episodes ago, I had the incredible Dr. E on the show talking all about her new method, which she says is all about how women especially know there's something wrong with them, but the doctors keep disregarding them. And so she's like, tap into the intuition about there's something that's not right and dig deeper. So I always say our health is a foundation for everything. You can't be a successful mom or entrepreneur unless you're healthy.
100%, 100%. And I do believe that, one of the gifts that we have as women is we are literally born with this wisdom and this connection to our body. And unfortunately, as time kind of goes on, we oftentimes can also dismiss ourselves. So we dismiss ourselves for a while as to like what we're feeling, what's going on. We're fine. We can manage it. We got this because we have lots of other things we have to do, right? Take care of our family, run a business, whatever it may be. And then when we finally do get to the point where it's like, okay, now I have to go to the doctor or I need to go and seek out help because something's really going on. When at that point you are met by somebody outside of you who is supposed to be an expert or the source of help on this, also dismisses you. That honestly, that is the pandemic I see in women's health right now, is the dismissal from both the external help that we're looking for, but also internally what we do to ourselves.
Oh my gosh, I know. And we were just talking before recording about how my neck hurts and my back hurts because I've been tense and sitting for extended periods of time.
Yeah.
And I've been getting these like dry red patches underneath my eyes where it looked like I was either crying all day or I'm like having an allergic reaction to something. And I'm like, why is this happening? And how sometimes these physiological reactions manifest because of stress.
Yeah.
And it's not because I'm allergic to anything or I touched something wrong. It's just my body saying, Renee, slow down.
And that's how our nervous system, like our CNS, our central nervous system works, is also how our defense mechanism and I call it the internal SWAT team, your adrenals, respond as well too, right? To stress. And so we will be given clues and signs often like, hey, slow down, something's off. You need to shift this, change that. But we do this thing where we're like, it's fine. I'm just in a season right now. I just have a little bit more to get through and then I'll be able to rest over there. Or, this is what I signed up for. I chose to be a mom. I chose to run the business. I chose to do the thing. So this is the reality. I've got to get through it. And our body behind the scenes is like, okay, I'll give you a little bit more wiggle room and like a little bit more. But then what starts to happen is your ability and capacity to still show up and function the same way, to feel the same way begins to change because your body's trying to get your attention. And so it'll try to get our attention for most people in the beginning, like brain fog, not fantastic sleep, not recovering as well. Maybe you start to feel a difference in your workouts. Blood sugar might be off a little bit, those kind of things. And then it can go a bit deeper where then our skin will show us, our joints will show us. We may put on like inflammatory weight in different ways. We're kind of snappy. Those kind of things start to happen. And then we get the big boulders, which is when people will say, and when I first started off, it was as a medical exercise specialist and trainer, and I was working with athletes, and then I was working with all moms. So I had male athletes I was working with who had this entire community around them. And these men were driven and they had, the RMT, they had us as trainers, they had the nutritionist, like they had a team supporting them. And then I was going and working with these women and moms. They were the team. It was them. It was like a solo hero's journey for her to get towards whatever goal it was that she had. And so without having all the support around her, I'd be training women and they'd be telling me about all the stress. And then she'd literally sneeze and throw her back out or bend down the wrong way. And it's like, that doesn't actually just happen. There's been this slow build. And then the body is finally like, I'm done.
Yep. Peace out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's come back to this. But first of all, I want to start with some quick questions.
All
so
right.
I'd love to know, where are you from?
I am originally from Newmarket, Ontario, which is about 45 minutes north of Toronto.
Cool. You're close to my hometown.
Yeah. You're from North Bay, right? I went to school in Sudbury.
Yeah. I actually have to fly into Sudbury in July because there's only one flight to North Bay a day and I can't get on it. So I have to fly to Sudbury and I have my parents coming to pick me up.
Like back in the old days.
I know. I'm like, Dad, can you pick me up at the bus stop? What is one of your favorite quotes?
Oh, most definitely energy flows where attention goes. I feel that and I believe that what we put our energy into is most definitely, where our attention is attuned to.
So true. So I'm going to stop thinking about my neck right now because it hurts a lot. Think about something else. What is one of the best pieces of business advice you ever received?
Take risks. Give yourself permission to be at the creative wheel. Allow yourself to try something. And if it doesn't work, that's not a mistake. That's not an error. You didn't fail at that. It's just information that you're gathering and then just go and try something else.
Exactly. What is one of your biggest mistakes?
I don't know that I've honestly, now that I can say it's been a mistake because I've learned from everything, but definitely when I was early on in business, when I opened up a brick and mortar, when I had a physical space, I really allowed the community to request the way that I ran my business instead of me intuitively listening into the way that I knew how to run my business. And so I operated from this place of what you should be doing, that the industry tells you should be doing, as opposed to what I knew I could be doing. And that created a solid 18 months of struggle and debt and feeling like I was failing at that time. And it took me massive burnout and having to literally move onto the couch for days and being in physical pain, having a fever, crying, my husband and my kids taking care of me, and they were little. And really, I remember my husband getting down on his knees in front of me one day, and we've been together since we were 16 and 19.
Wow.
And he was literally in tears, and he's like, I don't know what to do. You're the one who always knows what to do. And he's like, I don't know what to do. And I can remember just staring at him and looking at my little kids who were little at that time and just being like, what the actual F am I doing?
Mm-hmm.
This is not what I want to be doing. And so I took that moment that felt like a mistake and I flipped it on its side.
You just said no.
Yeah.
It's so interesting because I'm going through this massive no phase to the point where I actually went a little overboard and said no to a really good friend yesterday when she asked me to speak at her event. And it's like, the topic is all about my planner. And I had the opportunity to sell my planner. And I was like, no, because like I realized like this event is happening in September, but in my mind, I'm thinking it's tomorrow.
Right.
Well, I realized I've given myself grace this summer to just calm my nervous system. So I messaged her today. I was like, I was joking. I meant yes. But it's like, yes, saying no is so powerful. And then sometimes we listen to the wrong advice, thinking it's the best advice because it's either coming from a mentor or it's coming from a customer. And you think that's the only thing you should be listening to and not our intuition.
Yeah.
And we make those mistakes.
Yeah. And for me, I was listening to outside of me because I was wavering. It was new for me. I was scared. I wanted people to like me. I wanted customers to keep coming back. I wanted to do well. I wanted to keep people happy. I wanted to serve. And in doing that, I outsourced, what I knew to be true for myself. And I'm really grateful actually for that. Like, I think it's the only way that we learn. And I think it's the only way that we build self-confidence and self-trust. And that's where we meet ourselves. And the knowing is you actually have to lead yourself astray for a little while and have a WTF moment and be on the couch for a few days and like, what the heck, to create the space to then figure out the new path that you can carve for yourself to get to where you want to go. So really crappy in the moment. So grateful it happened.
And also Lori Harder said this in one of her episodes recently, that maybe the thing isn't that we need to completely quit something altogether because we always think it's either all in or it's nothing.
Yeah.
Maybe the thing is that we just need a little break, and a little break could be a couple days, a couple weeks, a couple months, a couple years.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean we have to quit it altogether because we need breaks.
100%.
And I was like, oh, this is awesome because I was told I'm either shutting it down completely, right? Or I'm going to just keep drudging along.
Yeah.
But
for me, it is a break. And it's how you define a break. So sometimes your break, it is a pause, right? Like you put that out today, like you feel like you're in this pause phase. Well, the other thing for us as women is that our whole way of living and functioning as women is based on different phases that we go through every month, every season, years and different transitions in our life. And because we ignore that and we show up in this 9-to-5 man's world of hustle, grit, grind, and go, which for a guy is amazing. It's how they're hardwired, hormonally, everything. But we are not. So because as women, we don't create the regular pause, we don't go into winter often enough, we burn ourselves out.
Yeah. And from my experience and from the women that I talk to is we don't know it's that bad until the physical symptoms start to show up.
100%.
Like there's like thoughts and there's dreams and there's conversations you have that are telling you. But then when your neck starts to hurt or you have indigestion or all this stuff is happening, it's like, your body's like, hey, tune into this. Something's going on.
I know. And isn't it amazing how, I don't know the percentage of women listening that are moms, or what for somebody that you care about. But isn't it amazing how we have this intuitive ability to see it happening in others before it like, when your boys are like, oh, they're coming down with something, or you 100% know, you can see it in the people you care about. You can see it in your partner or clients, all of that. But for us to actually fully like be in the seat of that for ourselves, so hard.
Yeah. And it's interesting because I know almost with 90 to 95% accuracy when somebody's going to quit.
Oh, yeah.
In business, quit their job. I'm like, they're done. They're checked out. And my intuition is so strong that when I ran my agency and I had employees, I was able to actually get the paperwork ready before they actually said the word and get the team ready to take over the content without saying, oh, by the way, so-and-so is probably going to quit. It was just the intuition, getting the team ready without them knowing it was going to happen. So that when it happened, it wasn't like I have to take over all this person's workload. It was just, this is what it is.
That's a superpower, Renee.
Totally superpower. I know. Okay. So tell us what inspired you to start this business?
Well, this business has gone through, many iterations over. I'm going into my 25th year of when I actually registered my first business. So I've been doing this, I accepted my first paycheck in the industry at 17, doing group exercise and teaching. And that was my love. And then when I was in school and I was going through for exercise phys, I was going to be the next Jillian Michaels. Like that was my vision. That's what I was going to do. I was going to be this, personal trainer and all of that. And I loved working with athletes and I loved working with people who really were just so committed to the outcome. As I was doing this for years and years, and I was the director for personal training for Sports Clubs of Canada and Bally's. And there was 12 locations we had throughout Toronto and it was amazing and I loved it. So I was learning this like business side of things as I was doing the fitness thing I loved. But then part-time, I was going home where I grew up in Newmarket and I was training women who were primarily moms. And I literally remember the woman I was training in this moment of being like, wow, you are the athlete of everyday life. You were working a full-time job. She had 3 kids. She was carving out time to work out for herself, trying to eat healthy, all that. And I was like, and you don't have the village. You don't have the team. It's you doing this. And I became so much more excited and inspired to support those women than I did being part of the athlete world where it was, don't get me wrong, they were working so hard too, but they had all the ingredients there. As were these women, they were seekers. They had to seek it out. They had to create it for themselves. They had to, they were accountable to themselves, not to the 4 other guys on the ice at the time. And so for me, something just switched. And I didn't have kids yet at the time, but I was like, oh, this is what I want to dive into. And so, I did that for years. I chased my paycheck for the first probably 12 years of my career. I drove from location to location. I said yes to everything and I loved it. And then I got pregnant with my first child. And in my mind, I was just going to strap her on me on a sling and take her to train my clients. And, everything was just going to be like, and then I had my daughter and she cried 9 hours a day for the first 9 months of her life. And it was the first time I had no control. I didn't know what to do. This is the first time I really understood what surrender meant. And I didn't go lightly. Like I fought the surrender every step of the way. And so everything had to change for me in my business. I had to actually recognize as a woman how different this was now. And I remember being like, I need to call every client I ever trained with children and just say, I'm sorry, I had no idea what you meant. when you were telling me that you'll get it when you have kids, like it's different, you don't understand. And it was so true. So when I had my daughter Emerson, I really started to soften with myself, the pressure I put on myself, the expectations and all of that. And it was this, year and a half of a lot of discovery. And then I was pregnant with my second child. And when I had my son, Sam, it was very different. It is, I think, with your second, like you've had that experience. And so I really took what I was learning as a mom into account with how I was working with my clients, what I wanted to offer. And I really wanted to change the way we were talking to women in fitness. I wanted to step out of this, like more is better, pushing, forcing. I grew up in this world of teaching classes that were called Survivor and Animal and Beast and like boot camp and all of that. And now the idea of doing any of that, I'm just like, that just sounds so awful. It sounds like punishment.
Beast,
right?
Beast, Survivor.
Oh, all of it. Like it will think of when the whole world of like insanity, right? When that was like the program to do. And so then I decided when my kids were little, I couldn't figure out the balance of how do I go back and do what I had done and generate the income and still be the mom and wife and take care of my house. And I remember I was out on a run. At that time I ran. Now I don't run, I walk. And I was on a run and I kept hearing over and over, like simplicity. You need simplicity and ease. And it was literally like just this, like a metronome in my head. And I kept going, well, how do I get that? How do I get that? And I ended up opening up my own studio. And I thought, instead of traveling to umpteen places, I'm going to create one central location where the universe can find me, the clients can find me, and I'm here. And so in 2010, I opened up a yoga and Pilates studio and it was boutique style fitness. And it was going great. We were like busting at the seams, but my overhead was more than what we were generating because our intro offer was like 30 days for $30. So we had we had tons of students. I had to offer all these classes. I'm paying out staff and all of that, but literally every single client is only generating me $33.90 gross every single month. And it doesn't take you don't have to be good at math to start to figure, that out. So the first year and a half were really hard. I didn't let anybody know that I was struggling. I didn't let anyone know I was struggling because it looked like it was going so well. And I was really suffering behind the scenes.
I was in the same boat.
Oh my God. And it was so painful because I was going in and teaching yoga and fitness and totally putting on this front, don't sweat the small stuff and all this gratitude. And this voice in the back of my head every day was you're so full of shit. You're literally crumbling. Yeah. And here you are putting on this show until my body broke down. And the breakdown for me was financially, I was ignoring the numbers. I knew we weren't doing well on the back end. We were in debt. And I went with my kids in the car one day. They're in their car seats and I couldn't even get $20 out of the bank. The next day I woke up and I had a massive fever. I literally moved onto the couch. I cried and sweat for 4 days. It's the first time I had to ask my team for help. I felt like I was letting everyone down. And on the fourth day, when my husband, they came to me in front of me and I was just what am I actually doing? I literally was go get me the phone. And I just started to call mentors who I had in my life and be I'm going nowhere really fast. I'm becoming the couch. Please give me some advice. What do I do? And the first person I called was my yoga mentor. And she was sweetie, this is just your dharma. You're never going to make more than $2,000 a month in the business that you're in. You just have to you're here to serve. You're not here to earn. And I was click. Next, please. Wow. I was just what? And every call I had, I sat up taller. And the final call I had was a mentor of mine who had owned the first gym I worked at. And he was here's the thing, Jen, you can walk away from it all. You could sell it and you're going to be fine. You'll start again. You'll do something new. You're going to be fine. Is that what you want? Is that what you want? So you talked earlier about the all or nothing. In my body physically, she was begging me to burn it all down and walk away because I was beyond done. But in my heart and in my brain, I was you can do this. Just start doing it the way you want to do it. Yes. And so that was it. And I just changed the way we did everything in the business. I was able to take us from being quite in debt. We were $65,000 in debt at that time when I was on that couch to becoming a multiple six-figure gross generating business. And then I sold it because I had done it, achieved it. And it was through that I recognized I actually want to help women in a different way. Mm-hmm. So I started to do more programs and really thread in everything I had known about hormones and our body as women and our gut and inflammation and just everything I had ever done in these micro moments I brought together. And it's where I wrote the Simplicity Project. And it was really designed for the woman in mind who wanted to feel a certain way, but with the foundation of simplicity and ease being how she did that. And so that, I sold the studio and I transitioned everything online in 2016. I had no idea what I was doing. I had a Hotmail account and that's it. I had no idea what I was doing.
Yeah, Hotmail.
Right? And just started to do this. And so now over the last almost 8 solid years, it's where I birthed the Hormone Project. I run my online fitness studio now, Synced, which is all based off the 4 phases of a woman's menstrual cycle and the lunar connection that we have to the moon. And that is how we train our bodies. It is not based on a program that is prescribed. It is based on where you're at in your own physical body. And also can we take into account the day you lived yesterday? What went on, the sleep that you had, and how do we still bring fitness and movement to your body, but not in a way where you're sacrificing something in order to achieve. And then about 2 years ago, I created something called the Audacious Woman, which is now a business mentorship. I got to this point where I really started to generate a lot of success by following that knowing and carving out my own path and doing it unapologetically and just having a lot of fun in the process. And I was witnessing all these other women. And we talked about this, how you can see in someone else when they're headed down a path of burnout and you're just sitting there going, oh my gosh, like, hey, listen, it doesn't have to be that way. I've done it. And then I did it a different way and it's so much better. And so the Audacious Woman, it's not a business course. It's not teaching women about funnels and SEO, and that it is supporting the woman who desires to create the business and the life of her dreams. Mm-hmm. And so that's been the path of how I've gotten here.
I love it. Thank you for sharing the details. Because we talk about, I went through burnout, but we always go straight to this is how I became successful. We forget about those, or we fail to share the moments of being on the couch.
Yeah.
And like, my story is quite similar. And I burnt out in like year 7 of my PR agency, when it was like the work that used to like get me so excited 5 years prior was just aggravating. Like, oh, our client got in a really good feature in Entrepreneur magazine, but they misspelt the founder's name. And it's like, out of my hands. I can't deal with that. But before that, I'd be trying to connect with the entrepreneur. I'd be like, hey, like, can you change the spelling on his name? And when I noticed that I just didn't care anymore, I was like, what's going on? And then same things, like extreme burnout. In terms of like, when I say burnout, everyone goes through different things, right? Yeah. Burnout to some people can be very lengthy, or to some people, it's like, here are the signs, it's done. Mine started and lasted for 2 years.
Yeah.
And I remember having a conversation with my friend, Emily Olson, when we were chatting and I was saying stuff and she took me aside. She's like, Renee, I feel like you're experiencing burnout. And I'm like, no. Burnout's for people that work 50 hours a week and that work on Wall Street and they make $100 million a year. It's not for me that work 45 hours a week or maybe a little bit more and making $150,000 a year.
Yeah.
But it's all based on all of the intricacies of your life. Because burnout can happen to men, to women, to people that don't have kids, to people that have kids.
It's like I was teaching inside of a mastermind I'm running right now called Equilibrium Women in Business, where I said, like, the decisions we're making as consumers are emotional decisions. And so if your avatar client that you're talking to is a woman who she puts everybody else outside of her on a pedestal and believes like they're perfect and that's only available for them, and that she never believes that she has a strong enough connection to be part of something. But the moment you like show up as who you are and you share your stories and you let people in on that part of your life where you're like, I literally am no different than you. I might just be a couple further steps ahead because my experiences have been different, or my opportunities just came a little earlier than where you're at right now. It's like, at the end of the day, for me, the way I view business now compared to how I used to, 10, 15 years ago, is we are all people helping people. That is what it is.
It's a little bit of luck and a little bit of strategy. And it's funny, I was just playing Kelowna-opoly. It's Kelowna's version of Monopoly with my son Noah prior to recording this. And I'm just like raking in the dough, buying all the properties, charging all the rent, to the point where I broke the rules of the game. And I was like, I want to teach this kid a lesson. And he ran out of money. And I was like, we have to remortgage a house. And he goes, what does that mean? And I was like, I don't have the mental capacity to explain that to him. And I said, here's what I'll do. I'll loan you money. And you tell me when you think it's the right time to pay me back. Right. And so I was watching him. So I loaned him a couple $100. And then he passed go. So he collected another $200. We had $400 now. And he could pay me back. Right. But I was like, hey, like, do you think it's a good time to pay me back? And this is what he did. He looked at the board and he calculated the odds of landing on another one of my properties and knowing he'd have to owe me money. And he goes, I'm going to wait to pass go one more time. If I don't owe, and then I'll pay you back. And I was like, wow. Like, I don't think Monopoly would have taught him that.
Yeah.
Right? So like, this goes back to like, changing the rules of the game to better serve you. So
100%.
Work 60 hours a week. Maybe sometimes you do because it's a season, but not all the time.
Or maybe sometimes you do because you get into an awesome state of flow and you love it. Like I have those days where all of a sudden I'm like, oh my gosh, it's like 5 o'clock, whatever. Or I'm like, I didn't friggin' eat today because I was like, and then I go inhale whatever's not nailed down. Like that, you don't want that to become your normal. But in those moments where you feel it, and to me, this is the thing for us as women. those moments escape you if you don't create that rest. Because if you're not charged, it's going to be really hard to feel like you can drop into your creative zone. And then you just become like how you described that not caring. We talk so much about like freeze, fight, flight, but we don't talk enough about fawn. And the fawn is when you're on the floor. The fawn is when you're like, whatever, I don't care, whatever. Like you're apathetic now. And that's where I feel like most of us as women, we've kind of been hanging out for the last little while, is like we've been in the fight or flight. We've done the things that need to get done. We don't remember what it feels like to live in the sweet spot. And so then we just end up like, you know, what do we say now? I just don't have the capacity for that. Like I can't. I don't have it in me.
The other thing is like, a way to test what your natural response is to get somebody to put a scorpion on your shoulder. Because this is actually a true story in which I've said on previous shows is that we brought back a new pet from Costa Rica months ago and found one on my shoulder the day I was unpacking our suitcases. But my reptilian response to that scorpion was to panic. And it wasn't freezing. I was like crying like a hyena. But I wasn't doing anything to solve the problem. I was just screaming and screaming, hoping somebody would come save the day. And I'm like, is that the way I'm in business? And it was so true. And it's exactly the way I am when I sit in overwhelm, when I sit in resentment, because Renee never spoke up. Renee never asked for help. Renee never put out the smoke signals that she needed somebody to come and help her.
Yeah.
And like, I couldn't even come up with the words to say, Dan, there's a scorpion on my shoulder. Like, he's like, what's going on? He thought there was a raccoon in the house. His default was like, Renee's wrestling a raccoon right now. He came around the corner. What's going on? There's a scorpion. He's like, ah. But I'm like, I'm not suggesting women put scorpions on their shoulders, but the whole point is like, how do you react in those moments? Is like, because you're sometimes mostly very unconscious to that reaction to the point where it's like, it's not serving you. And like, think about all those moments where it's happening in your life and it just builds and builds and builds till you get like a headache. And then you get these red dots underneath your eyes and like all this stuff. And you're like, okay, I need help.
Yeah. That's for me. It used to happen in ways where, well, my two areas of vulnerability would be my back, my lower back. So if I wasn't paying attention and I would go and push it too hard in the gym or teach too many classes, I would inadvertently, quote unquote, sleep the wrong way and wake up and my back would be sore. And the other way was I would start to lose my voice. For me, the path my body knows, if we need to slow her down, we need to shut her up. And so I'll lose my voice and my throat will get sore. And then I can't do my work because I do my work like this. So now I pick up on it so much faster, where the second I swallow differently, I'm like, all right. I'll go and I'll do a scrub of my calendar and my responsibility. Like, what have I said yes to that actually doesn't have to happen right now? Can I move that? Can I, I'll go to bed earlier, as where before, like, no way would I do those things. But I just don't compromise that anymore because I can't, because I know it's like the equivalent of having, a 4-day hangover and you can't get back into your life until after that. That's what it feels like now. If I don't listen to those cues, is I am so off my game that it's not worth it anymore.
Oh my gosh, I hear you. And it's like, so I guess my question for you would be because you've built up a great foundation for yourself financially and with your business. What advice do you give somebody who actually has to show up for work and they're completely burnt out?
I think that it would be, first of all, looking at the other parts of your life where maybe you're overcommitted. So if the work is the thing where you're like, I have to show up, this is the contract that I have right now, like literally and figuratively, this is what's required of me. My question would be like, okay, what time can we get you to bed at? How can we feed you? Can we hydrate you? Like what are the support systems around you needing to show up and perform in this way that we can actually create for you in your life? And then as you have some of these new habits and these kind of protective measures put around you, and you start to feel a little bit of that life force coming back, then at that point where you're not treading anymore, like you're actually like your feet are on the ground and you can stand in the water and see beyond the horizon, then can we actually be open to creating some changes in the structure that you've created for yourself in the hours, in what you're doing in that time. But for somebody who's in that, like, you don't understand, I have to do this right now, to go and say to them, you just need to work less. You just like, they're not even going to hear you because they can't. Mm-hmm. So the other thing is looking at their environment, their life. What's like a 1 degree shift of support for them that is going to make it feel like a big change in their body?
I love that, because you think about traveling, like, so you're going across country and you actually shift your compass by 1 degree over time, you end up in a completely different place.
100%. So for me, this example was always shown to me growing up, because my dad was head of sales for Titleist for Acushnet Canada and Golf. We lived on golf courses. Golf is like what put a roof over my head. And so my dad always gave like golf analogies in life. And so he would always use this example in golf and say, like, when you stand on that, on the tee block, if your eyes are 1 degree off of the direction you want that ball to go, or the wind comes in movement, that 1 degree shift in where you are headed or where you think you're going compared to where that ball ends up changes the game completely. Mm-hmm. But, he always said, but then you get to go and you get to line it up again. And you can do this kind of course correction. But if you don't start to understand, and it is that example of being, a pilot or being in the plane, is when you look at that map, it literally is like a rainbow. Like, it just shows you, here you start and here you end. Meanwhile, they've taken you higher, they've taken you lower. They have there's so much that pilot has had to do to get us to where we need to go. We don't recognize that.
No. And I was doing the 75 hard program, and the thought that came to me is like, yeah, you know what? This isn't for everybody. And the people that are diehard 75 harders, which is thoughts that I learned in it. So even Andy Frisilla, the creator, would be like, essentially saying that you're a wussy if you can't do this. There's no excuses. There's people that have no legs and no arms that completed it, because part of it is working out. And I'm like, yeah, but maybe what if it's just a 1% improvement every day?
Yeah.
It's not a gallon of water. Maybe it's an extra glass of water. Mm-hmm. It's not an extra 12 hours of sleep at night. Maybe you're just turning the TV off 20 minutes earlier.
100%.
But it's consistency. And it's just like those tiny little micro improvements that play. It's sustainable. They play a bigger game in the end.
100%. It's like following the breadcrumbs and creating, like, it's the tiny little pebbles that we put out that create the biggest ripple, right? It's not throwing a freaking boulder in the water. That sucker just sinks. But we have this like energy that it has to be the extreme. Yeah. Right. If the goal's not audacious enough, if it's not big enough, it's not hard enough, then where's the challenge in that? And I'm like, I don't know. I can do a hard thing in a moment of, you give me a hard, like, physical challenge, I'll rise to it. But you ask me to do one small new change every day for 365 days. That is way harder to me.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Like, I'm sorry, but how many people can actually commit to flossing their teeth every day always? It is the most simple. Okay, Renee. Bad example for you. But the reason I'm saying that is, like, it is the easiest, cheapest thing you could do for your health. How many of us actually do that every single day?
Yeah.
Except for Renee Warren.
Yeah, I know. But don't ask me what I use to floss my teeth, because all of the sustainability junkies will come out and slap me in the face. I had the plastic. I know. It's the plastic ones, the plastic U-shaped ones with the thread on the end.
Listen,
there's reusable ones. I know.
There is, but here's the thing is, like, how about we focus on us instead of shaming what other people are doing or choosing to do, right?
I think of the turtles too, and I just like all these things. But anyway,
listen,
it's true.
I get it. But what I'm saying is like, we're bringing this back to the individual in the moment of, like, you creating this sustainable habit for yourself.
Exactly. Yes.
Right?
Yeah, 100%. It's not some program, although this program has literally saved lives. Like, no lying when I say this, that 2 of my friends finished 75 hard. And because they lost weight, they lost inflammation in their body, they both discovered they had cancer. One woman looked in the mirror and physically saw the lump in her breast and was like, oh, what's that? She felt good. Stage 2 breast cancer. She just finished her last chemo treatment like a week and a bit ago. So I'm not shaming the program. I'm just saying is that it's not for everybody. Yeah. And you have to find the thing that works for you. But really the whole point of all of this is like, how good can you feel? And to actually be that's kind of like your compass towards happiness and success is how good can you physically feel? How good can you mentally feel? And like you talk a lot about a lot of stuff relating to this, like cycles and hormones and really incredible work. But where do women start? They're, hey, I'm overwhelmed. What do I do? Where do I start other than going to work with you? What's the next thing that I can do to actually feel more empowered and feel more energy and sleep better and enjoy this time with my kids? Like, where do women start?
Well, I think it depends first on that woman and of herself. So for me, the first thing is actually connecting to your body and drowning out some of the noise of what you could be doing. And literally just like, if I were to ask you right now to sit on the couch with me and describe to me how you feel, like in your body, physically, mentally, emotionally, like how do you feel when you wake up in the morning? How do you feel as you move through the day? How do you feel when you lay down at night? Like, let's start there and create that connection. The second thing is that if she's a woman who still has a bleed, still gets a period and has a cycle, can you start to actually tap into tracking that to understand that you as a woman are not designed, you will never feel the same way any 2 days because your hormones are constantly in flux. You have times a month when estrogen and testosterone are climbing, and you have times a month when estrogen is going to drop and progesterone is going to come on the scene. You have times a month when your hormones are going to be at their lowest. And it's understanding those phases. Our age, I'm 42. I'm in the perimenopausal years of my life. So, right? There's like,
I know, I'm there too.
But here's the thing is there's actually, for me, I'm like, I actually love it. To me, the perimenopausal transition, if in business, it's like the person who's like, okay, Renee, like I'm earning $5,000 or $10,000 a month and I want to scale to 20 to 25. Okay, that's great. So what's the bridge? Like, so perimenopause is the transition from like, I used to feel great. I was like at this age, my body responded, da, da, da. And then, we get taught what menopause is, which for most women is like the junk. And it's like, no, it's not at all. We just haven't been taught how to bridge there properly.
Yeah.
So if you can support your body and your nervous system, and then the things I would say in terms of lifestyle, it's many of the things you just said. If you know you don't drink enough water, how would it feel to get in literally one more glass of water a day? When you go to bed at night, instead of scrolling on your phone, could you actually plug that in somewhere else and like close your eyes, read a book, connect with your partner? Can you break out of a habit you have right now that you actually know doesn't make you feel fantastic? I used to run a challenge for women that was called the power of snooze. So the average adult snoozes 3 times every single morning, which is 27 minutes. Okay. Yeah. So when we think about time and we say, I don't have time to exercise, I don't have time to make the smoothie, to pack the lunch, to, do the thing, to journal, whatever it is. If the average adult is snoozing 27 minutes a day, that's a half an hour. And so when you think of what you could actually do in that period of time, even if you're the person that's snoozing once, it's 9 minutes. In 9 minutes, you can close your eyes and think of what you're grateful for. You can pour a glass of water. You could blend a smoothie. You can make yourself a tea. You could choose something. So it's instead of looking at it being so hard and like we've got to do every single thing, there's no expiry date on when you have to accomplish or achieve or do the thing. And so for me, it's like, I can look here now being 25 years in the journey of it, but it didn't happen overnight. It has been, and I'm still adding and subtracting, like one thing here, one thing there. And so I think we just need to give ourselves a whole lot more grace and actually not make it hard. Could there be simplicity in it?
Yeah, I think it's just taking things off our plate. Yeah. It's as simple. Like I know my sister is a perfect example and I love her, but she's a professional ultimate Frisbee player and she's the captain of her team going to the world championships in like a couple days. But she has that, which means she's managing the team, managing her travel, right? practices games, tournaments. She has two kids that are in soccer here, soccer there, dance class, figure skating. And she just opened up a pediatric physiotherapy clinic.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm like, I haven't received the call yet that she's burnt out. Mind you, she's got a lot of great support and she has a great co-founder. But I'm like, there's a point when it's like, this is just a little too much. Like my nervous system couldn't even handle her telling me all these things. I'm like, I'm just going to hang up the phone right now. This is too much for me. And that, you know what, it works for her because it's seasonal. But at the same time, it's like, where's the grace? Where's the pause?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Well, that is the seasons.
Yeah.
The pause, so this is actually how, as women, we historically, if you go back in time, how we did move through our bodies, very much, a lot of it was connected to the sun. So when the sun set, we were like, the day was done. It wasn't light switching on, devices on, all of that. It's like your cortisol response is when the sun comes up, cortisol rises with you. When the sun goes down and the moon is up, that's melatonin. And so to establish that circadian rhythm, the wake-sleep cycle, stopping the monkey mind at the end of the day, we did that naturally. We don't do that anymore. And the other thing we don't do is recognize that, for us, it's like when the winter season happens and we have the darkness longer, it is a sign and a signal for us in our bodies as women. And this is very much in alignment with our menstrual cycle to go inward, to create a pause, to take the rest. And sometimes you need a double winter. Sometimes you need like a year of winter. So maybe it's not a year of hard, maybe it's a year of pause. Right. And so when we can start to honor the rest, then we get to replenish and we get to figure out and find a new way to reemerge and then to step into that full bloom and, have more discernment in what we're choosing for ourselves. But, it's sad for a lot of us that we first have to go through the opposite, the burnout, the struggle, all of that. But it's just like when our kids listen to us and they're like, blah, blah, blah. Like, what do you know? Right.
Yeah. What do we know?
We don't believe it until we've gone through it.
We don't know what it's like.
Yeah.
Like you don't know what it's like being a parent until you've gone through it. And I would never wish burnout upon anybody. Mm-hmm. But I will say this, I don't really know of any women that have run their own businesses and raised a family without experiencing bits of it.
Yeah.
And I think there's part of it that's okay because it allows you, it's supposed to teach you a lesson. So you can find whatever the lesson is in it. For me, like for you, it's like the throat hurt is like, oh, nope, time to pause. But had you not had that before, you wouldn't know.
Exactly.
So, okay, this is great. We could speak forever. But I do have one last question for you, which is a very similar question to what you ask your audience. But when I ask you what it means to be a wild woman, what is that to you?
Oh, it's such a good question. For me, it's leading yourself first. It's the woman who leads herself. And it is like trusting that you actually do know. When you say you don't know, the opposite is true. And so it's leading forward. Lori says this all the time, unapologetically. And for me, it's like having the courage and being bold enough to go out there and create the life that you desire.
Yeah, I love it. Okay, so if people want to go online to find you, where can they go?
Best place is Instagram, which is Jenn with 2 N's Pike, or you can head over to my website, jennpike.com.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Jenn, thank you so much for joining us today. This has been incredible.
Thanks, Renee.
So there you have it. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Into the Wild. To make this girl happy and to help reach other women who are dreaming of starting their business, please leave us a 5-star review on iTunes and everywhere you listen in. Also, if you want to find me in the wild, check me out on Instagram at Renee_Warren. That's RENEE_WARREN. And leaving you with one of my favorite tips of all time, the best advice you could ever receive is from someone who has successfully done it before you. Until next time, ladies, peace out.